This is Rooted by the River, an SRC parenting podcast. None of us have parenting figured out, but I'm so glad you're coming on this journey, a journey to grow as parents while we raise and disciple our children. Rooted by the River is here to equip your family to root deep in the living waters of Jesus and his love. I'm John Homas, the family pastor at Spanish River Church. Today on the show, I have Laine Schmidt. Laine, welcome.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
Laine, you're a business coach. You've worked on business development, leadership development, helping people even grow in communication. How long have you been in business coaching?
Since 2016. So going on, this will be our 10th year.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And you and I have actually worked together a little bit.
Yes.
I was on the team for a while. We had an amazing team of
We
coaches.
did.
Yes.
We did.
Yeah.
Man, we got real lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things in working with you that I learned about myself and I learned about just people was, one, I didn't really know how to ask good questions, but I learned that asking questions can be really powerful. And coaching is all about asking good questions.
Yes.
What makes a great question?
What makes a great question is something that invites curiosity and invites thinking. I always tell people, you know, it's a good coaching session or conversation if someone goes, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Because they're thinking.
Yeah.
And we just don't sit down and take time to think about things.
Yeah.
So a good question is one that invites people to think.
Yeah. And I think even now in our country, like, there is this sense where we're not good at asking questions. We're on our phones all the time.
Guilty.
Yeah, guilty. And not only that, but I think we know each other because we get these sound bites about other people and we assume a lot. Mm-hmm. I have this book that I really enjoyed called Ask Powerful Questions, Create Conversations That Matter. And this really stuck out to me. He says that we have a shortage of curiosity in our country. With a shortage of curiosity about each other and the world around us, our research is finding that great questions are becoming the new currency.
I like that.
Why do you think questions matter for parents?
Oftentimes we make assumptions. Mm-hmm. I mean, never me. I've never done that.
Right. Other parents have.
Never jump to conclusions. But we do. We jump to conclusions. We make assumptions. And questions, it's twofold. Asking questions to our family, to our children and our spouses, it forces us to stop, slow down, and search for more context, which can change everything, having different context. So that's one reason. And then asking good questions to others in front of our children, it models curiosity. And as the author of that book mentioned, I think we had spoken, you and I had used this word earlier, there is a curiosity deficit. Yeah. We live in an individualized society. We live in it's all about me society. It's kind of how things have been built up around us these days. And so asking good questions in front of our children shows them it's important to focus on others. And not focus on ourselves all the time. Yeah.
I want to dig into the idea of curiosity behind the questions. But first I want to ask you, there's actually a science around question asking. Like, it does something to the brain. And I cannot remember what it does, but I've heard you talk about it before.
Sure.
Yeah. What does it do to our brain when we get asked a good question?
Well, it's fun because asking questions, it truly does have a physiological response. Yeah. So whenever someone asks you, John, if I were to ask you a challenging, hard, difficult, interesting question, your brain is going to typically go into the executive functioning part of the brain. And a lot of times if someone asks us a hard question or if we're forced to think about things that are difficult, we get something that's called the amygdala hijack. And what happens is when we're doing something that is routine or normal, our brain has certain neural pathways that it goes to. When we're forced to do something new and different, our brain forces us into that executive functioning side where new neural pathways are created. Now, I don't know the science about how this works with young people because their executive functioning part of the brain isn't actually developed until they're 25. So I would hope, this is not a scientific fact, I am no doctor, I would hope though that asking young people questions and getting them to think differently, higher order questions, maybe has some role in development of that executive functioning. I'm not sure. I don't know, but I would hope so. You
could tell me that it does, and I wouldn't know any difference.
Yeah. But the internet will.
The internet will. Yeah, they'll find us out.
They will find us out. Right.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting because I think one of the things we're exploring is on this podcast is just like best practices. It's not about a guaranteed outcome, right? It's about, hey, your child is doing something that you didn't plan on them doing, or they're heading down a path you didn't want to head down.
What? Kids never do that.
Yeah, kids never do that, right? But then how do you adjust to that moment? And instead of fretting that they're heading down that path, how do you be the best parent you can be in that moment that shapes them along the way? And one of the things you're saying is part of that development's actually question asking. You mentioned the word we react, we assume we know what's going on. And there's all these moments where our kids say statements that might frighten us because we see the implications of what they're saying.
Right.
And they might not even mean what we think they mean, but just to calm down and be genuinely curious and ask a question, right? So what's interesting behind questions, you mentioned the word curiosity. And what we wouldn't want is just to think of questions as a tool to get the outcome you want. We want actually talking about developing a genuine curiosity from one person made in the image of God about another.
Yes.
So you mentioned something that was interesting to me. You said Jesus was curious. Talk about that.
Well, one thing we know about Jesus is he knows everything. Yet we see multiple times in the scriptures where he asks lots of questions, even though we know he knows the answer.
Yeah.
We see it twice in Luke, where when he's a young boy and he's found in the temple, we see him asking questions of the people there. We see him again in Luke talking to the experts of the law, where he says, what is written in the law? How do you read it? Even though Jesus knows these answers, he's forcing people to really think and really explore. We see it again in Matthew when he's speaking with his disciples. And he says, who do people say the Son of God is? Who do you say I am?
Yeah.
And what he's doing is he's inviting people to explore their thoughts. And in today's world, it's not just young people, all of us, we're just inundated with stimulation, right? And so we don't take time to stop and really explore our thoughts. What is it I think about this? Why does this happen? Why did God create this the way that he did? Why is this happening the way that it is? And what would happen to the upcoming generation if we were able to teach them and model for them what good thinking looks like, you know? And Jesus modeled that for us. And if part of parenting, I'm not saying I'm good at this, but if part of parenting is helping our children to know more about Jesus so they can be more like him, let's model what Jesus did.
Yeah, absolutely. It reminds me, several years back, I did a sermon series through the book of John. And as I was studying in preparation for that sermon series, what struck me were how many red question marks there were from Jesus asking questions. And then I started to look at every chapter. Almost every chapter in the book of John, Jesus asks a question. So I entitled the sermon series, The Questions Jesus Asks. And each sermon we started off by framing the question.
Okay.
And then digging into what he is actually getting at.
Did you have any big surprises in your research for that?
There was one question, I cannot remember what person he asked this to. It was a person that needed healing.
Okay.
And everyone knew that this person needed healing.
Yep.
And the person called out to Jesus, and Jesus walked up to him. And instead of saying, boom, you're healed, he said, what do you want me to do for you?
Right. So you do remember the question.
Yeah.
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 Which is amazing. I mean, Jesus knew, but I think it was actually a way of honoring him. Like, why don't you look, I'm not going to assume that I know. Why don't you tell me? Yep. And so there was a real sense of honoring the image of God in that person.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great example.
What does curiosity do to us? Let's say that we, in this age where we see people on YouTube like who are different than us, and we get sound bites that confirm how they are, who they are. What does curiosity actually do in the midst of all that?
It is character development. When we're curious, we are developing humility because we're having to admit we don't know everything, which as a parent is a very good thing to practice. I have experienced that myself, having to swallow pride and go, all right, how can I be humble in this moment? It develops humility. It develops empathy. Again, learning about others, whether that be other individuals, other cultures, it opens our eyes to the world around us. It shifts our perspective. It develops relationships because we as humans, our default mode is to talk about ourselves. That's our default. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just how we're built. We're comfortable hearing our own voice. We're comfortable talking about our own stories and our own lives. And when we sit, John, if you and I sit down and I ask you questions all about your family and all about your career and all about all the things going on in your life and your heart and your relationship with God, what are you going to experience in that moment? What are you going to feel from me?
Being known and a sense of care.
Yeah. When we take time to invest in others and truly be interested in their lives, it speaks to them. It says, this person cares about me. Yeah. It builds trust. It builds rapport. And so you're benefiting because you feel loved and cared for and heard, which is so important. I benefit because I get to know more about you and about the things going on in your life, which gives me knowledge and wisdom about so much more than just you, but about the things that you're connected to. Yeah. And so curiosity really, really develops character and develops relationships.
Yeah. One of my friends used to joke that our tendency is to be curious, but when we're talking about ourselves, we'll say, enough about me. Let's talk about you. What do you think about me?
I haven't heard that one. That's good.
But it is a great reminder that every person that God has created is a creation of God. And they do not share our same experience. They don't share our same story or same culture. And there's an opportunity for real learning in every person that we engage.
Absolutely.
Including our children. So maybe what are some moments that it might be good for a parent to stop and remind themselves to be curious? You don't have to be too personal, but maybe you could give us some thoughts on that.
Good moments to stop and be curious. I think most moments are good to stop and be curious.
That's interesting.
I mean, I think it almost would be easier to identify the moments where it's not because there are so few of them. I don't even know what those would be, John, to be honest. I mean, I think so. Curiosity, again, because it's not our default. Yeah. It's a muscle, and we have to practice it. And like any muscle we use over and over. We were talking about your daughter doing her dancing. She's developing all kinds of muscles because she's using them over and over. And curiosity is no different. It's a muscle we have to build and practice. So as parents, when we're being curious about our young people, our children, I think I would encourage all of us to practice it as much as we can. It's not going to hurt unless you're talking to teenagers who don't like having questions asked of them. But we can talk about that later. But yeah, I think I really would encourage all of us to practice it because it's a muscle.
One of the things I noticed in myself was because I've known these children in my home their whole life, I assume I know so much about them. But even as we've shared before, like the choices and paths my daughters are taking that are very different than like what I did at their age. Right. It's becoming more and more that like, oh, there's so much more to learn about them because they're not just an extension of me. They are a completely different human being. Right. And while my responsibility is to shape and form them, teach them how to love Jesus and that they're loved by Jesus, their life is going to look so different than mine. And the quicker I can take ownership of that, and then adjust to foster that moment with them, I think the better off I'll be because I'm not just going, I assume they're me, so I'm going to tell them what to do. I can help them actually grow in the Lord in the path that He's given them to walk in. Sure.
Yeah. And a great example when I hear you say that, if they're making a choice that is different than a choice we would make, how interesting would it be if they were to divulge information for us to stop and instead of, lecturing them like we tend to do so much, or telling them what they should be doing, if we stopped and explored for more context. Tell me about that. Now here's a fun secret tip. We hear about asking good questions and of course there's methods to that. We can never go wrong by just saying, okay, interesting. Tell me more about that. That's always a great starting point. Yeah. That's interesting. Tell me more about that.
And that's not even a question, but it is interrogative.
Yes.
It does seek more from the person.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's really helpful.
And a lot of times our children, excuse me, they don't want the 20 question game, right? They don't want to be interrogated, but they do want to be heard. Yeah. And sometimes they want to offer more information. And so that's interesting means, okay, I've been heard. Tell me more means, okay, now they have control over the amount of information. So that's why that's a really safe start.
Yeah, I love that. Well, what are some age appropriate or stage appropriate questions you could think about asking, from when the child can process a question up until they leave your home at 18? Yeah. I'm assuming that as you go through, you have to think about how you ask questions differently.
Right. I mean, as those of us, with kids at home know, and I mean, we were kids once too, the way that we receive questions is different based on our, excuse me, the way we receive questions is different based on our age and life stage. So younger children to younger adolescents, we want to ask questions that promote discovery and wonder. So things like, why do you think God made a giraffe's neck so long? Or, oh, you're so good at coloring. Why do you think God gave you that gift? Or, what is something you saw today that was beautiful that God made? So for younger children to younger adolescents, ask them questions that make them think about the world around them, about maybe why God made them a certain way.
So the giraffes question is actually getting me thinking, does that say something about my own maturity level?
It says that you also have a sense of wonder. I think that's beautiful. Keep going with that.
There you go.
We can explore the giraffe question if you want, anytime.
It's a separate podcast episode.
Sure. I'm happy to come back and talk about giraffes. Older adolescents to teenagers, they don't love questions. And I'm not going to make a general sweeping statement. Some young people love to talk and answer questions, only based on my experience with all of the teens I know. And I was an educator for 11 years and I worked in that age group. They don't love being grilled. They don't. So for that age, it's more reflective questions. So more follow-up questions. So maybe start with that's interesting, tell me more. And then our questions to teenagers, instead of digging in on specific things, follow up, maybe mirror a word they use. So example, if I were to ask one of my sons, how was football today? And they said, which is a pretty safe general question. They don't have to talk about their feelings or anything, right? And they said, oh, it was fine, but it was hard. What was hard about it? So mirror their words, just ask natural follow-up questions, because then they don't feel like they're being grilled. Right. They feel like they're being heard. Okay, this is a natural, normal conversation. With older teens into young adulthood, this is when they're really starting to own the world around them. So questions that promote ownership and, again, reflection are good. So, they want to know that what they have to say matters. So questions that give them the ability to give feedback. So something like, what is it that the modern day church needs from your generation?
That's a great question.
Or, thank you. Came up with it myself. Or a question about their own life. Where's God opening and closing doors in this situation? So questions that promote ownership are good for young adults.
Why is it important to ask them questions that promote a sense of ownership?
That's the age at which we hope our children launch, where they're really owning life as a young adult, owning their role in the world and in society, owning who God made them to be. And so by promoting by giving them opportunities to think about ownership, it hopefully will affect their perspective on their role in that time of life.
Yeah. In one of the previous episodes, one of the guests and I were talking about the difference between getting your kid to do exactly what you want them to do in this stage versus developing their values.
Oh, yeah.
And your kid, like I've said earlier, my girls are not me. They're going to take a path different than me, but I can't help them foster Christian values or family values.
Yeah.
And I think those questions of ownership begin to open up the door for you to get to those values. What is their value system?
How does it open the door?
Well, I think if you ask someone, if you ask a teenager, like, what does the church need from your generation? All of a sudden they're thinking about what marks our generation. What is it like? What are our frustrations with the world and with the church? And then what is the church currently like? And all of a sudden all those things are coming to the surface, and you're able to have a conversation about what's guiding their answer and help them, help them see aspects of maybe the church, the imperfections of the church, but also some of the beauty of the church.
Oh, yeah.
And that gets in with their value system.
Yeah. And they appreciate that honest conversation.
They do. So I want to go back to this book because it was interesting, the values that are in questions. So he says that really at the first level, when you ask a question, there's a sense of intention that's conveyed. And you're saying, I'm willing to get to know you. And then as you keep going, you're building rapport, which is, I see you. And then openness, which is, I hear you. And then listening, I get you. And then empathy, I'm with you.
Yep. Yes to all of those.
Yeah, yes to all of those. And even as I hear all this about questions, I think one of the things, in the coaching business, we've probably asked hundreds and hundreds of questions. And I still feel like a beginner. Like I read that hierarchy there and I'm like, oh my gosh, I still have so far to go. There's so much of life where I'm just assuming things and not asking good questions. So what is your encouragement to people, even as they maybe have never even thought about asking questions to their kids?
It's very simple. Just be curious.
Yeah.
We overcomplicate everything. This does not have to be that complicated.
Right.
Just practice being curious.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so good. And I think even when things like this are introduced, the tendency can be, I've got to perfect this. And it's really the art of asking questions. It's an art.
Sounds like a you problem, John. I'm kidding.
It probably is. It probably is. But even this journey of being aware of this idea of asking your kids questions can be part of their discipleship.
Absolutely.
Start today.
Yeah.
Start being curious today.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Start with, tell me more.
Tell me more. That's great.
Keep it simple.
That's great. Laine, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for doing this podcast. We all need more parenting resources.
Yeah.
So I think this is going to be really, really great. And I hope today was helpful.
It sure was. Thanks for listening. And if you want one practical tip from today, it's this: ask your kid, tell me more. Thank you for listening to Rooted by the River, the family podcast of Spanish River Church. If you're watching on YouTube, leave your takeaway from this episode in the comment section. If you found the episode helpful, send to a friend or leave a review, which is a great way to help others find this podcast. Feel free to send your questions in to rootedbytheriver@SpanishRiver.com. Thanks again for listening.